When I introduced the next conversation the previous time, I tried to have this conversation and wasn't able to do it properly because of connectivity issues. I said it's something that I have a personal interest in. How does one eat for a healthy heart? I have an unhealthy art. I have an unhealthy art as well. But my heart is also unhealthy, and I'm in the process of trying to understand through a series of tests just how unhealthy my heart is. And my attempt to have the conversation with Marika Sboros, publisher and editor of foodmed.net, was on the basis of a page of information that she put on the back page of the first section of the Business Day a couple of weeks ago. Delighted that Marika is with us again via Zoom this time, which, fingers crossed, will make it easier. Marika, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John, and thank you very much for having me back again.
How much uncontested information is there in this field?
Well, when it comes to whether there really is such a thing as a heart-healthy diet, I believe that there is. The closest thing that science can tell us so far is the Mediterranean diet. Before I want to go into that too much, I think I just want to say that your listeners need to keep two things in mind, and you as well. Two things in mind: cholesterol and inflammation. And if I can just expand a bit, cholesterol is basically not the health demon that we used to think it was. Particularly, remember, I don't know if your cardiologist or doctors have said to you, spoken about good and bad cholesterol, because it's actually not scientific to talk in those terms. You get LDL, and that used to be known as bad cholesterol, and then HDL. You actually have to have both as total cholesterol. And if you don't have cholesterol in you, you'd be dead, because your brain and your body have to have both. And interestingly, the research is now showing, although LDL used to be called bad and HDL good, too much of a good thing, as we all know, can be bad, and the same applies with HDL cholesterol. And then also, really robust research is showing that the main target of a heart-healthy diet, and not just diet, a heart-healthy lifestyle, should be to combat inflation. Forgive me, inflammation. Yes, dear. So the focus really needs to be, from what I understand from my best cardiology contacts worldwide, is the best diet is one that fights inflammation in the body. And remember that inflammation is the body's immune response to injury, infection, and harmful substances, which can come from the food we eat. And it's that research that has shoved the Mediterranean diet right onto the pedestal as one of the kings. There are a couple of others, like the DASH diet that I spoke about in my article. But
for those who don't know what the DASH diet is, I think most people will have a sense of what the Mediterranean diet is. The DASH diet, perhaps less well known.
It is less well known, but it's not all that different in makeup from the Mediterranean diet. And when it comes to, I don't want to put too much emphasis on labels, because just as cholesterol on its own is worth a program, an hour-long program on your show, so what is the Mediterranean diet? Because classically, it's a diet that was inspired by the way people traditionally ate in countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea. That's mostly Italy, Greece, and Spain. And that was traditionally, and in most of those countries, many people are not eating the way they used to eat. As soon as we had convenience foods, fast foods, and ultra-processed foods. So we need to basically be looking at foods that fight inflammation. The
You
ones
see,
that
Marika, sorry to interrupt, but I'm already getting communication from medical people, dietitians, nutritionists who tell me that you're talking rubbish. So, um, this is why I asked the question about uncontested. This
ah,
happens to be
it,
what you believe, but it's very
well,
obviously not what significant numbers of people practically involved in the field believe.
John, let me just tell you that whenever I write about diet, nutrition, heart health, I get dietitians and medical doctors saying things to me like, when did you get your medical degree? It's not me saying this, it's the research. And so I will say to all those dietitians who are jumping up and down to say, do look at the science. The science one of my best contacts in South Africa, cardiologist Dr. Riaz Motara, tell them to phone him and tell him that it's not scientific. Of course, anything in excess, even foods that are now were once thought to be really demonic, close to demonic for hearts, like eggs and avocados. Nobody's suggesting that you stuff yourself full of eggs and eat only avocados. But and you need to be concerned about the cholesterol. So I'm certainly expecting people to attack me. I base what I'm saying on the latest science. The Mediterranean diet is one of the most well researched, and it focuses a lot on vegetables and healthy first class animal proteins. It suggests little red meat, doesn't exclude red meat altogether. Again, that usually is like, to use a pun, the red rag to the dietitians, bulls, and some medical doctors. So if you look at foods, that it makes a lot of sense once you look at the research. Foods that are so far away from their
Okay.
natural state.
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt, Marika. As you said, one
Okay.
needs an hour to do this properly, and we don't have an hour. We have
Right.
a minute and a half left. So
Oh
then,
dear.
if the research is saying that the most important thing to do is to avoid foods that promote inflammation, just give us a couple of foodstuffs or food groups that should be avoided because it has been, in your view, comprehensively proven that they cause this inflammation. And then, if there are a couple of food groups that help reduce inflammation, so that we can start thinking about how to put those food groups or those food items into our heart healthy diet.
Okay, that's dead easy to
Yeah.
do. Foods that fight inflation are things like cakes, sweets, biscuits, pies, heavily processed, ready-made meals, and of course, high sugared drinks, alcohol to some extent. In the Mediterranean diet, there's a little bit of red wine allowed, but alcohol is basically a toxin. So, I don't know any cardiologist who would suggest that anybody starts drinking red wine if they don't drink it at all. And when it comes to foods that fight inflation, these are vegetables, especially green leafy vegetables, cruciferous, broccoli, cauliflowers, fruits, mostly the low sugar fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds, and moderate consumption of fish and seafood, eaten at least twice a week, because these are rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Moderate intake of dairy products, mainly in the form of cheese and yogurt. Limited consumption of red meat, poultry and eggs. At the Mediterranean diet is kind of like has these in moderation. So and it's not only diet that you need for heart health.
Of course, and I'm sorry we are now out of time, but I do appreciate your being back with us, Marika Sboros, publisher and editor of foodmed.net. And I'm sure that you will find, if you go there, foodmed.net, find the article that was published in the Business Day some weeks ago, which led us to have this conversation. And yeah, I mean, I remember hosting at the Franschhoek Literary Festival probably 10, 12 years ago, a long time ago, what was a very vigorous and impassioned debate between Tim Noakes, who was obviously banting, and Professor Lionel Opie, who was saying, no, Tim, your banting diet is very dangerous for people. What they need to do is stick with the tried and trusted Mediterranean diet.